Hey everybody, welcome to r/malicious compliance, where people tend to get exactly what they ask for. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got a story for you. Stop waking up at 6? Okay then. When I was a kid, probably 7 to 12, I'd routinely wake up at 5 to 6 in the morning with no alarm, perfectly rested, and decide I'd just go play some RuneScape before school. I was homeschooled at the time, so I had a good couple hours before I was supposed to start. For some reason, my mom had a problem with this. She had a lot of problems with a lot of things, but that's another rant from my therapist. So naturally, she decides to tell me that I can't wake up at 6 anymore. So I thought, as you probably do, that she was being stupid, but of course, not being brave enough to tell her so, went to my bedroom and set my alarm for 6:01 instead. When she woke up the next day and found me on the computer, she of course started screaming at me. I waited patiently for her to stop, and then proudly announced that I had not disobeyed her. I had woken up at 6:01 instead. My victory was short-lived, as I then got my butt beat and was grounded. I never was allowed to wake up early again, and of course am now a lazy adult who would rather sleep as much as possible. Edit. Thanks to uCaulfield88UK for pointing out I didn't clarify. I woke up without an alarm when I was really little, but then started sleeping more and set an alarm because I genuinely enjoyed waking up early. I made it sound weird. Also, it wasn't because I played video games, it was solely the waking up part. Never had issues with school because of it. Was never tired, wasn't loud in the morning, didn't wake her up. She was just a narcissistic POS. Yeah, that's a tough one. I was never one to wake up early on my own without some sort of assistance. I'm more of a night owl. In fact, I'm recording this after 10 o'clock at night, so. But it's a shame. You know, if my kids want to get up early and start on school, start on chores, I'd rather them do that than play games first thing in the morning. But if they could get up a little early, play a little games, and then get on their stuff, yeah, I could see doing that. Don't want to listen? Fine. I'll faint in class. So I have very low blood pressure that I manage pretty well, but there are some things I still can't do without full-on passing out. Anything that requires me to move from sitting and laying down to standing quickly makes me drop like a fly. I went to a community college that required us to take an exercise class. I chose kickboxing before finding out that it was mostly a cardio class, but I did find until one day we had a different professor leading the class, and part of our circuit training for that day was burpees. I went up to the professor and started to tell her that I can't do burpees, and she cut me off and said that I was going to do them and do them right, or I wouldn't get points for that class. Now I could have half-assed my attempt and maybe been okay, but I was mad, and the professor was watching me like a hawk. So I started doing burpees, fast and properly. I don't think I got 3 in before everything went black and I fainted hard. I don't even remember hitting the ground. Class not only got stopped because I fainted, but I busted my elbow falling, so they had to wait for maintenance to clean up the biohazard. I can understand where the professor might have been coming from. I'm sure there are lots of students who come up with lots of excuses why they can't do things, and most of them are probably made up. But, on the other hand, you got to be willing to listen and hear people out, and give them a chance to prove that they actually have a disability, health issues that, prevent them from actually doing certain things, and, if they have documentation especially, but yeah, you got to be willing to hear people out. That's a good way to get a lawsuit. Forward the complaint to the owner? Okay, no problem. My wife used to be an apartment manager for a 190-unit complex. It was a live-in situation, so we didn't have to pay utilities or rent. We did, however, have to deal with residents knocking on our door all day and sometimes night, despite having clear office hours of 10 to 6. We had a weekend manager who had no authority, but could show apartments and help with lockouts. The owner of the complex was a dishonest ex-con, and to this day, I had no idea how he got all his money. This guy was notorious for squeezing every penny out of residents that he could. When signing the lease, it was clearly explained by my wife that everything must be taken from the apartments when residents moved out. There was a strict $100 charge for all larger items that were not removed, things like beds, furniture, televisions, etc. This would all come out of the deposit made at the time of signing. When residents told my wife they were moving, she would again remind them to remove everything from the apartment, or they wouldn't receive their full deposit. One resident we had moved out over the weekend and had a conversation with the weekend manager. Again, The weekend manager had no authority. This resident stated that the weekend manager said it was okay to leave a few items, and that someone would come to claim the items as their own, and that the items would be gone before final checks. When my wife went to go look over the vacated apartment, she found a TV stand, and a desk. She then checked with the weekend manager, who said they never told the prior resident they could leave items behind. My wife had maintenance come and dispose of the 3 large items, but rather than charge the typical $300, she only charged $100. My wife then called the prior resident explaining that they had left a few items, but only $100 would come out of their $700 deposit. The prior residents were furious with my wife and aggressively claimed the weekend manager said it was okay to leave them. My wife explained over and over that the policy is to have everything gone and that she was actually saving them $200. The prior residents were having none of it and would call over and over yelling at my wife to fix it. The prior residents demanded that this be escalated to the owner. So my wife forwarded the emails from the prior residents and explained that they had been charged $100. The owner read the emails and thought my wife had mistakenly charged $100 instead of $300. The owner then told my wife to withhold $300 from the $700 instead of the prior $100 charge, and the check went out to the prior residents for $400. The prior residents threatened to sue and still called for a while, but after a while they gave up and moved on. Sometimes people should just accept kind gestures rather than throw a temper tantrum. Yup, it sucks, but the rules are the rules. Now, I wouldn't doubt if the weekend manager might have told them, "Oh yeah, go ahead, leave a few things, come back and get them when you can." She may not have had authority, but that doesn't mean that the residents really understood that she had no authority, and she could have lied her way through this, knowing that she messed up. But either way, it's up to the residents to know the rules and follow the rules, so you get what you get. Can't wait for me to test a lawnmower? Help yourself. Grabbed a broken lawnmower from outside someone's house this morning and was reminded of this story. I'm part of a group who keep a community garden and help local people get into gardening too. We let people know we will take any old tools and equipment, as we can often repair, restore, or just sharpen stuff and it's good as new. And we just give it back or away in exchange for a small donation. It's not uncommon to see mowers, trimmers, etc. outside houses in the summer for the scrap man, and we always snag them. Easily 75% of the electrical stuff we get, maybe even as much as 90%, just needs a fuse or a new plug and it's good to go. You leave electrical gear in a damp garage all winter and it'll need some attention, but people just chuck it out. So a few years ago, I'm working on the garden, and I hear someone say, Hey, excuse me. Someone said I can get a mower here?" This is already a bad start. We're British, for crying out loud. What's happened to please and thank you and sorry? It was a guy who looked like what I can only describe as a big posh sod, and as I started into my normal spiel about welcome to our garden, he cut me off and asked where he could get a lawnmower. As someone said, he could get a free one here. No problem. Maybe he's some weirdo who doesn't want to hear about how the broad beans are doing well this year. We actually had 2 lawnmowers that had been dropped off that weekend. A little hover mower that I had already fixed, rewired the plug, and a massive overworked model with adjustable cutting lengths, automatic compressing grass box, etc. I hadn't touched it because 1, they're massively complicated, and 2, they're expensive, so no one gives them to us unless they're completely out of warranty or effed. I told the guy he could take the small one, but the other one was probably broken. But he looked it up on his phone and decided he wanted it. He tried it. It started. He took it. Done. Glad to see the back of it. An hour later, my phone rings. "Hi, I got your number from your website. I picked up a lawnmower about an hour ago, but it only runs for a few minutes and cuts out. Can I bring it back?" Sorry, mate. I literally just got rid of a knackered one of those. I really don't want another. Sorry, I can't help. Click. Well, that's one way to unload a piece of crap lawnmower. Let the blowhard take care of it. Toasted enough? I worked at a Dunkin' my senior year of high school, 2005 to 2006. People were terrible to us, and we would often be called dropout, etc. I'm a very good, polite customer service personality. Well, one afternoon a woman requested a bagel, extra toasted. Okay. I turned down the speed of the toaster to its lowest setting, so the bagel is under the coils longer, and I prep it and hand it off. She looks at it and, very upset but still trying to be polite, tells me she asked for extra toasted and please make it again. Okay, I put it through even longer. Return it again, less polite, visibly irritated. I finally make it go as toasted as I can without actually setting it on fire. This time she's very upset, calling me names and saying that I'm too stupid to get what extra toasted means. I apologize and say that I can't roast a bagel anymore without it catching on fire. This time she raises her voice and says, "The customer is always right. Make it correctly." So I put it through longer, and 3/4 of the way through, the track catches on fire. I watch it go. The smoke alarm started going off, and with the woman watching me over the counter, her flaming bagel lands in the tray. I count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, blow it out and declare, "Bagel's done." That time she didn't complain. Honestly, I think she was trying to process a teenager watching her food on fire and then blowing it out. Yeah, I hate hearing that phrase, "the customer is always right." That is an out and out lie. The customer is not always right. The customer can sometimes be right. But just because you're a customer doesn't mean you get to run me, run my business, run my employees, and just be an all-around jerk. I dare anyone to come into my retail establishment and tell me the customer's right. I'll put a boot right in their backside while they're going out the door. Happy anniversary, B. I worked as a receptionist / customer service person at an audiologist for the first half of my 20s. This boomer B comes in for batteries for her hearing aids, and I look her name up in the system, see her type of hearing aids, and get her the correct batteries called 675S. She looks at the packet and says they're the wrong battery type. I show her on the computer the type of batteries and place them in her own hearing aids, and the hearing aid works. Any other type of battery would be too small, hence not work, and also get stuck anyway. But she insists, no, it has to be P675. This just says 675, and I'm trying to explain to her it's the same thing. The manufacturer just changed the packaging so the P isn't there anymore. And she keeps going on about how her audiologist kept hammering in that it has to have P for power. I show her the back of the packaging that has the P on it, but it's still not enough, and it doesn't look like the ones that work. Then she goes on about how the audiologist would know more about batteries than just a receptionist. And how would I know? I'm just a receptionist. Mind you, she's a difficult client, and we all know her at the center. Her audiologist is in the next room sending me chats saying, "I never effing said that." Because it's 15 minutes before close on a Friday and we just want to go home, and her audiologist doesn't want to speak with her because it'd be more time wasted. I'm like, you know what? Fine. So I go in the back and get expired batteries with the old packaging on, because the good ones with the old packaging were gone already, and give them to her, and since these were the ones she wanted, I'm now closing the center. I wrote alert notes for the next person who deals with her about how she didn't want to take fresh new batteries because the packaging was different. So she's all happy with herself and leaves. Weekend goes by. I didn't work at the center again for a week because I was at another center. But I check up her notes and it says, "Client very frustrated and upset today. Had 50th anniversary weekend with friends and family and couldn't hear a thing because batteries weren't working. Did packaging training with customer to clarify batteries in new packaging will work. Hope you enjoyed your anniversary, B." Okay, so OP, you are completely right about this woman being difficult and being a B. But I gotta say, it's really only partially her fault. Not your fault at all. Completely the audiologist's fault. If he would have got his chicken butt out there and explained it, she would have taken his word for it and moved on. You know, if she sees him as the authority figure in that center, he should have just stopped cowering in the back room and come out and dealt with it. My house in the middle of the street. When I pay my mortgage, I round up and divide in half. I pay half every other week, so my mortgage got picked up by another company when my mortgage company went out of business. To do what I was doing with the new company was $300 to enroll and an extra $40 each payment. Oh, hell no. I spoke to my credit union and they had auto pay that would pay my bills from my direct deposit, free. So nearly a year goes by and I get one of those scary letters. You are in default on your mortgage. Unless we get X payment within 10 days of this letter, we will foreclose. I was astounded since I had never missed a payment and was actually paid a couple months ahead. I spoke with their accounting department. It seems they couldn't accept half payments, only full payments, even though they had done so for a year. So the money had to sit unapplied until a full payment was accrued. That made sense, except, again, they got more than enough, and it was always in there in full before the due date. So on the due date, they should have just taken it and applied it to the mortgage. So further digging, the rep says to me, "Oh, by the way, we have $8,200 of unapplied funds in this account. What do you want to do with it?" Pay my mortgage with it? Oh, we can't do that. So I had to get a check cut for $8,200, pay $45 for them to overnight it to me, take it to my credit union, cash it, pay $25 for a cashier's check, and pay another $45 to send the cashier's check back to them. I called relentlessly to see when it had arrived and had all kinds of postal tracking, signature confirmation, etc. Remember, I only had 10 days to get this stuff straight. So they get it and verify that it's applied to my mortgage and that there will be no foreclosure. The rep tells me, "Well, your next payment is due in 2 weeks and there will be penalties and late fees applied, so the amount is XYZ and we're raising your interest rate to nearly twice what it was before." No. All this is your company's fault. She says, "You knew these were the terms and conditions when you took out your mortgage with us." No, I didn't take it out with you. I took it out with another company and was assigned to your company. "Well, don't be late with the next payment." No, I want to speak with a manager. So I finally get to speak to a manager, and he wasn't much better. His only response was, "Well, you can always go with another company, but good luck with that these days. So many foreclosures, and your credit is not very good from missing so many payments." So I decided to take his advice. I contacted my credit union, explained everything, showed them their own payment transfers, and the mortgage statements showing the other company had received the money bi-weekly like clockwork. And the credit union took over my mortgage. I got a reduced interest rate and killed all the fees, penalties, and got the overpayments back. I applied it to the new mortgage payments, etc. So when a company acts like they have you over a barrel and tells you to go try with someone else, do it. Edit. This still astounds me even after all these years. I can't imagine any other company, car loan, credit card company, etc., asking, "Hey, what do you want us to do with all this money sitting over here?" and not automatically concluding, "Oh yeah, let's apply it to the outstanding balance." I will say, OP, there are companies out there, whether it's car loans or mortgage, that do not, and a lot of that's changed the last few years, but a lot of them would not take partial payments. You had to make one monthly payment. Didn't matter what part of the month as long as it was on time, but it had to be that dollar amount. You couldn't do the split week or weekly payments, things like that. Some of them would even penalize you for paying, a year's worth of payments at a shot. I know you kind of got shafted when your old company closed down and you got transferred over, but it's still kind of up to you to figure out and realize what their rules are. You can't assume they're all going to be the same. If that's their policies, then that's their policies. Good for you going back to your credit union and getting that part straight. You want the email to be translated? Fine by me. I work for an insurance company, and I'm based in France, so a lot of our work and correspondence is done in French. I'm working on a loss which implicated several affected parties and insurers. 2 of the insurance companies related to the loss were based in the USA. I wrote an email to all the concerned parties about a laboratory examination that will be taking place related to the loss, and that the insurers are welcome to be present or to assign a third party to be present for them during the laboratory examination. Due to the large number of insurers implicated, I listed everyone's name, insurer, and file number for clarification, and I rewrote the same email in English and put it in the second half of the email. A few days later, Karen, not her name, but I looked at her LinkedIn profile, and let me tell you, she has the face and hair of a typical Karen, replies all to the email with one word: translation? Clearly this lady was much too busy to scroll down one tick and see the bottom half of the email was in English. Unwilling to let this gross unprofessionalism and French hatred slide by so easily, I replied all. "Hi Karen, I assume you'd like to receive the information in a language other than French or English, since both were included in the original email. Since you did not specify which language you wanted the email to be translated to, I have taken the liberty of including a Spanish, German, and Mandarin version at the foot of this email. Please let me know if any other translations are necessary. She didn't reply. Good for you. I don't think it was French hatred. I don't know. She might have had a little bit of that darn foreigner attitude. I don't know. But I think more of it had to do with the laziness of not, like you said, scrolling down in the email. I mean, when I get an email, even if I see that the main message is right there at the top, I still scroll down to see, okay, what's this? Is there an attachment? Is there something that I'm missing? Make sure maybe there's an email chain so that I'm not missing something from before. Yeah, I think most of it was just laziness. But good for you. That was a good answer. The art of malicious compliance. My favorite high school teacher was my art teacher, Mrs. C. Often she would explain a project to the class, show us how, then work on our own oil painting while the students worked on the assigned project. One day an office assistant came to our classroom and interrupted to tell Mrs. C that she had failed to fill out some paperwork. They handed her a form and told her she needed to fill it out right away. Mrs. C said, "Can't you see I'm busy now? This'll have to wait." The office person insisted she must fill out that form right away. So Mrs. C took the form, taped it over the canvas on her easel, and proceeded to oil paint the answers onto the form using a fine brush. It took her about a half an hour, and the office assistant had to stand there and watch as she painted each letter onto the form, then added decorative scrolling. I loved her for that. That is absolute genius. Not to mention the fact when she goes to take the form back, it's going to be all wet with this paint. That stuff will take forever to dry, even on a piece of paper. Good luck with that at the office. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. If you've enjoyed this video, would you consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel, and maybe click that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard telling you stories. And let me know down in the comments if you want more malicious compliance. I think it's a good addition to our tech support stories.